Welcome back to episode 7.
Yeah, this is episode 7.
Lucky number 7.
Yes, 777.
Yes. These are your hosts.
Yep, I'm Nia. This is
Myra.
And welcome to another episode of
AntiSocial Murder Club.
So in this episode, we just talked to you guys a few days ago. We told you we was going to try to get back on track with our Saturday recordings. So this episode, we're doing something a little short and sweet, one case, and we're focusing on Toronto.
Yeah, and this is actually like an ongoing case right now.
Yeah, so
very
current
recent.
events.
Current events, yeah. This is hopefully short and sweet. I mean, I found a lot of information.
And you always find a lot of information.
True shit. And there was actually an update just yesterday.
What?
Yeah, so.
See, this is how it is when we're taking notes for this show. Myra will pull up with like 10 pages and I'll have 3. But
this is actually only 4 pages.
Look at this.
Yeah, short.
It's
It's
short
just
and
short.
sweet. So, anyway, how was your week? The little bit of space that we haven't talked to you.
Pretty good. It wasn't that bad. I feel a little under the weather today.
A little sicky tone.
Yeah.
Ugh,
And it's like
worst.
raining and cold out. Well, it's not cold, but
Yeah, the rain.
yeah.
I wonder how you got. It was probably the 8th because it's been super hot. So running in and out of like the office and the house when you have
And the
AC
office
pumping. felt
felt like a damn igloo all week.
That makes sense.
So maybe that's it.
Yeah. My week was pretty interesting, actually. On Thursday, I actually took off work because I had to take my dad to the doctor or whatever, and we got locked in the hospital because someone reported an active shooter.
Which was false.
Yeah, it was false, but at the time, it was like very real. But it's funny because it's not funny, but like it's interesting to see how they go about it when it happens, to see it from that side of things.
Was it a mess?
Surprisingly, no. Like, most of the people were calm. Someone got a little hype when they first told us we couldn't leave the hospital. And I think that was just, like, them wanting the answer. Like, they wanted to know. So, like, some told me to use Google. And I did my Googles. And it came up, it was, like, active shooter and Washington Hospital Center.
Jesus.
Blah, blah, blah. So, but after that, like, everybody in the hospital, or at least the building we were in, was extremely calm.
Right.
And they just did whatever they were told to do. ATF came in with their big-ass guns. And to me, that was scarier, seeing the cops all, suited and booted. But it come to find out it was just somebody high on either PCP or that bad batch of K2 who came in there and, like, threatened the cops. Threatened a doctor or whatnot. So, yeah, it wasn't even that serious. And, like, me and my pops was just chilling. I think I was actually texting Myra, like, cracking jokes the whole time. Because I was just, like, doing a little murder research.
Like, you're really going to try and shoot up a hospital? Like, they're just going to go around the corner to get, like, stitched up or something like that.
And then I heard that he was in, like, the cancer wing. So I was like, maybe someone got a little upset with
maybe he got diagnosed with cancer and was like...
Yeah, and, like, threatened the doctor.
Yep.
Or, like, I don't know. Because I know sometimes, in my experience with doctors, you ask them questions, they never give you straight answers.
True.
Or, like...
Maybe they told him they were going to cure him and he's not.
Yeah, or, like, sometimes it seems like they're just not listening to what you're telling them.
Yeah.
It's like, because they're so busy trying to get the next patient in, and it's like, I'm trying to explain to you,
But that's still no excuse to be threatening to shoot the place up.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. No excuses here. But all right, I guess let's get started. I want to know what you got for me today.
All right, so this is the case of serial killer Bruce McArthur from Toronto. Shout out to 6.
Toronto. She wants to go to the 6 side.
And this actually the case broke 6 months ago. It came out.
So that's really new.
Really new. And I remember seeing it, like, when it came out, it trended on Twitter. And I was just like, yo! But at that point, there was not much information. And now there's, like, a shitload of information. But the most interesting part, which we'll get to, of course, this is still ongoing. Like, the number could rise any day. The number has been rising every day. So it's, like, it's really exciting.
So they're just finding bodies everywhere?
Kinda.
So it's like, let the bodies hit the floor. They're just falling everywhere.
You're feeling very musical today, aren't you?
Hey, look, this is what I do when I'm in a joyous mood.
Okay, so, like I said, the case broke in January of this year, 2018, and we're going to go back to when they first started investigating and everything, and then we'll touch back to most recent events. Mm-hmm. So, it's summer 2017 in the church in Wellesley. I want to say Wesley, but it's not. But this is like a neighborhood in Toronto, and it's known as the Gay Village. So it's kind of like a little... It's like full of bars and like restaurants and shops and all that, and they're all like friendly to the LGBTQ community.
That sounds like every gentrified neighborhood out here. It's like
basically,
when the gays start moving in, you know that
you see the rainbow flags and everything like that. But this is known as the Gay Village, which at first when I saw it, I was like, is this newspaper being problematic? But it's like, no, this is like if you go on the Toronto website, it says the Gay Village.
Well, their property rates went up. Property value. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, so everyone in that neighborhood by summer of 2017 kind of suspected, and it was rumored, it was kind of like everyone knew that there was a serial killer among them. Like, these men were going missing, like, left and right. They were never heard from again, and it was just kind of like they've disappeared into thin air. Okay. So they started disappearing from, like, 2010 to 2017. And
that's a long time.
It's a very long time. And they all disappeared. They all frequented that neighborhood, and they were all of either South Asian or Middle Eastern descent. So it's kind of like
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Like it's kind of like if you have, any sense of like logic, that something is wrong. Yep. So a lot of the guys that went missing, actually, of course, later it comes out they're actually, I guess, closeted.
Oh, so down low.
So, yeah, and they had families. So they were living double lives. They frequented that neighborhood, but their families and, like, close friends didn't really know. So that made it, of course, a little more difficult when dealing with, like, the whole missing persons and all that.
Or trying to locate them, because you wouldn't have said, oh, well, my husband frequents this area.
Exactly.
Because you didn't know he was gay.
Exactly.
Or bisexual, probably. But
Yeah. And of course, if like the cops came to your house and like, hey, your husband was last seen at this and this bar and this, and you're just kind of like, what? Yeah. That can't be my husband.
Say what?
Exactly. Okay, so Toronto detectives actually formed this like task force called Project Prism in the summer of 2017. It was created to investigate the disappearances of these men. So the lead detective, Hank Idsinga, and 3 other officers assigned to Project Prism had actually worked on another similar task force created in 2012. Okay. So this is the second task force created to investigate these missing men. Yet no one like is able to find any information or where they are. Wow. So that previous task force was called Project Houston. And it was actually created, this is like really interesting, after a tip came in 2012 about a possible online cannibalism ring.
A ring of cannibals?
Online cannibals, which I don't know how that works.
It baffles me how these people who have like sick ways of living their lives find each other and like group up. Is that many people that you got a whole community? Like it's crazy.
Cannibals?
Is y'all sharing recipes and shit? Like I want
to know. Like, are you like, hey, I got a forearm, you give me the thigh? Like I don't understand.
Like I prefer breasts. So can I like trade you? And how do you like to make your human roast?
How do you marinate the brain? Like what's going on here? Like I have a lot of questions about this online ring.
Pull it with shredded human sandwiches and shit.
They got barbecues. They got Labor Day barbecues.
Serving laborers.
Oh my god. Okay, so they were investigating that possible online cannibal, whatever ring, and its alleged ties to the disappearances of these names. I'm gonna try my best. So this guy, Skandaraj Navaratnam, went missing in 2010, and somehow they connected it to that online ring, and that's how this whole Project Houston started.
So the online ring likes dark meat, it seemed like, because you said it was mostly Asian and Middle Eastern people.
They wanted some spice.
They need some little flavors in there.
The tip was later discounted, so it wasn't real. Mm-hmm. But I want to know, like, there has to be some truth to it. You don't just make this up out of thin air. Like, and you don't make a whole task force. Yeah. And, like...
That's making me think of that new movie coming out where they found that guy's laptop and it was like all this footage of like them torturing people and it was like this.
Aren't there like online chat room or something? Yeah, like dark web. That's
dark web. Yeah, it reminds me of dark web.
Oh, it sounds like it. So, although the tip was discounted by June 2013, so like maybe 6 months after the start of Project Houston, they had actually identified 2 other missing persons linked to the gay village. Okay. Abdul Basir Faizi and Majid Kayhan were middle-aged South Asian immigrants who disappeared between 2010 and 12, just as Mr. Navaratnam did. So Project Houston was ultimately shut down after there was no evidence to link the disappearances, nor evidence to suggest foul play was committed, even though there was a clear connection to the neighborhood. Their backgrounds are very similar. And it's like, how do you just disappear out of thin air? Like, how?
Sheesh.
So, we're going to go back to Project Prism, which was in 2017.
Okay.
So this guy, Bruce McArthur, quickly becomes a person of interest. And it wasn't long before they started investigating him and realizing that he actually had a violent past.
Okay.
So, October 31st of 2001, just after McArthur's 50th birthday, he went to see a male sex worker at his apartment, and he had met this guy through an online chat, and he had sex with him like in the past before.
Okay.
So while at this sex worker's house, McArthur struck him in the back of the head with an iron pipe until he lost consciousness.
Here we go with pipes again.
At least he hit him and not... All right. When the victim regained consciousness, he immediately called 911. McArthur turned himself in and after the attack, even though he claimed he didn't remember the attack or why he did it. Mm-hmm. He received a conditional sentence that included spending 1 year under house arrest, a 10 p.m. curfew for 6 months once his house arrest was over, and 3 years probation. He was ordered to stay away from the village and cease any further contact with escorts. So he didn't serve time in jail.
They be giving some lenient ass.
Well, it's because like during the whole trial, whatever, they were like, "Oh, this is just like." So he was taking anti-seizure medication along with poppers that night. And if you know poppers, so like the whole the make sex feel better, whatever. Yeah. They thought that a combination with that night specifically, it just made him turn violent. That's what like his lawyer claimed, and the judge was like, "Yeah, he doesn't seem to be like a threat to people."
Say he wouldn't do the same damn thing again. Take
exactly.
With the...
Exactly. Oh, well, he was ordered, a part of his like condition, whatever, was to stay away from poppers. But you can't enforce that unless you're on his ass 24/7. Pause. All right, so in 2016, McArthur was investigated for a possible sexual assault, but was set free after there was like no evidence. So in this case, they found them in like the back of a McDonald's in McArthur's car, masturbating each other. And the victim said McArthur turned around and like started strangling him. And like he panicked and left and called the cops. When the cops talked to McArthur, he said it was consensual. Like the whole choking was part of it. There was no evidence to prove either of them were like lying or telling the truth. So they just let him walk.
Okay.
So aside from him being like violent and having a violent past, McArthur was also said to frequent the Black Eagle bar in the village where Andrew Kinsman, who disappeared in June of 2017, had worked. So he had connections with all these guys.
Okay.
Somehow. Like some of them had actually worked for him. Like this Kinsman, he worked for him at one time. He actually dated this McArthur guy as well. And then Skandaraj Navaratnam, remember we just talked about him?
Yep.
He also dated McArthur and worked for him as a laborer at his company.
So this is sounding to me like maybe he was a lover scorn or some shit, and he just became psycho with it. Because if they were still in the closet and he was dating these men, not that I'm trying to make
excuses for it?
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about your theories after you hear all the information.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I like to hear this. So 2 months into Project Prism, in October of 2017, authorities find McArthur's 2004 Dodge Caravan in a scrapyard. So he was trying to get rid of it.
Okay.
They find traces of blood in the trunk and the back seat. And at this point, investigators start tracking McArthur's movements because things are just like all starting to add up finally. Yeah, he's like perfect. He fits perfectly into everything. On their radar. Exactly. So they're monitoring his calls until December of 2017 when police obtain a warrant to secretly enter McArthur's apartment and copy his computer's hard drive. Which this is wild. I don't know if they do this in the US, but in Canada, apparently you can just sneak in, like with a warrant, of course. Cops can sneak into your apartment and look through it. while you're not home.
So you don't have to be home. They just walk in?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty dope. Like, that sounds kind of cool. Like, if, of course, you're actually, like, there's no doubts that this person is guilty.
Yeah, I guess it helps because then they don't have time to try to hide or destroy evidence. It's just there.
That's kind of cool. But I don't know. It could be a double-edged sword as well.
Yeah, you're going to see some shit you don't want to see. Or you might end up getting murdered.
Or what if they, like, found some guy's torso in his bed or something like that?
I would not want to walk into that.
True shit.
Run out screaming like SpongeBob.
Oh, my God.
Running in circles with my arm hands up.
All right. So, during this time, it's suspected the DNA results from the van came in because on January 17th, 2018, they connected McArthur to 2 of the missing men.
Okay.
So we're assuming that DNA, that blood that they found, was that of these 2 missing men. So
okay.
Now they can tie it, and now they can get an arrest warrant for him. But they placed him under 24-hour surveillance while that warrant came in. Mm-hmm. So officers had instructions to arrest McArthur if they saw him alone with anyone. Because they knew this motherfucker was like...
It's a potential he gonna kill him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on January 18th at 10:30 a.m., police observed McArthur entering his apartment building with a young man who was later identified as a sex worker. Police entered the apartment and found the young man bound and restrained on the bed.
Yo.
So he was all right. He wasn't like dead or anything yet.
Okay.
He was just tied up. So McArthur was taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the cases of 44-year-old Salim Esen, who disappeared in March of 2017, and Andrew Kinsman. And I believe that's the blood of the 2 guys. These 2 guys' blood was the one found in his van.
Okay.
Because at this point, those are the only murder charges that they're putting on him.
Right.
So McArthur, like I said before, he had his own business. He was a landscaper.
Okay.
And police obtained his client list, used it as a guide to search properties where he had worked across the city.
Burning people's bodies in other people's yards.
Oh, you just wait.
Oh, my God.
The number of properties quickly grew to 100. So they had more than 100 properties to go through and check for evidence. And this includes, possible bodies, any, weapons that he may have used and stored in different places. One particular house where he stored his tools in exchange for landscape work. Mm-hmm. They found 400-pound faux rock planters, more than a dozen of them. Mm-hmm. So they were taken into evidence. They were taken to Ontario Forensics Pathology Service. Ontario, my bad, my English. And they started. So this is the funny thing. Canada's murder rate is so low. Their whole country had 611 murders in 2016. New York alone had 628.
In a month.
And that's all of Canada.
Right.
So they only have 1 full-time forensic anthropologist working at all times. The U.S. has thousands.
Oh, wow.
That's how, serial killers are basically, unknown in Canada. It's weird.
Life must be nice.
It sounds so nice to live in Canada.
Here we go.
Well, this forensic anthropologist... Shit, the way this political climate is going, I'm about to be a... Canada.
Is that how it goes?
That's all I know. That's all I know.
Well, shit, I'm trying to go to Carolina, so we need to make this happen, bruh.
So, Dr. Kathy Gruspierre, I want to say, she has a French last name because it's Canada. But she's the country's only full-time forensic anthropologist, and she was conducting the x-rays on those planters. Mm-hmm. The planters were then sawed in half and peeled like a banana, revealing human head, torsos, and limbs.
I'm not shocked because you said it weighed 400 pounds and it was faux rock. It shouldn't weigh that much.
Thank you. So 7 bodies in total were found scattered among the planters.
Bruh.
In different pieces. All over. So the number of murder charges grew from 2, and then to 5, and then to 8 total.
Okay.
So, even though they had, damn it, did I lose myself? No. Okay, my bad. So even though they charged him with 8 murders, only 7 of those bodies were identified. Mm-hmm. The search of McArthur's home took months and hundreds of hours. It concluded just 2 months ago or something like that, in May 11th. Mm-hmm. Over 1,800 pieces of evidence were collected just from his apartment alone, and 18,000 photographs were collected as evidence. It's believed he kept photos of the bodies and, like, the process of dismembering them as trophies.
As trophies, yep. As they do.
Mm-hmm. So most of the excavations took place in the winter months using heat lamps to defrost the dirt. So they went back in May and, like, looked through it again once everything was defrosted. And they sent a cadaver dog along that property where they had searched and found the planters again. Mm-hmm. And the cadaver dog alerted them to the back of the house again. So they started excavating again on July 4th, just like a couple days ago. And they stopped on July 13th, so last week.
Damn.
They were finding human remains almost daily.
At this one people's house?
At this one people's house.
Could you imagine that was your damn house?
Thank you.
But I've been like, look, I'm moving. Fuck this shit. Y'all can have this house. I'm out of here. Like,
Exactly.
fuck this shit. I'm out.
Literally. Because it's like, how do you... Like, that's so scary. So the remains were, like, they were pieces of bone fragments. It was, like, teeth. And, like, we didn't know up until yesterday where they identified, finally, the 8th body. And that was that body that they were finding. Dismembered. Sprinkled across their yards.
Oh, my God.
It was actually, like, a ravine in the back of the property. But they identified it as that of Majid Kayhan, who disappeared in 2012. So that body was there for 5 years? 6 years?
And nobody, like...
That's like one of my questions. That you didn't smell nothing coming out your house?
You don't. They must not have dogs because, like, even though they're not cadaver dogs, dogs will smell anything and dig at it.
Maybe they knew, and it's like there's so many questions.
Maybe they're in on it.
Thank you. I hope they're questioning them.
They're part of that cannibal.
The cannibal ring.
The cannibal ring.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and name the victims because I didn't have a chance to do that before, and just so you can see that, like, I guess how, like, similar they are.
Okay.
So a lot of these names are very hard, but there's 8. So Skandaraj Navaratnam was a 40-year-old Sri Lankan Tamil refugee who disappeared September 2010. Majid Kayhan, who was this last victim that they found, 58 years old. He was Afghan and was married, had a son, and disappeared October 2012. Abdul Basir Faizi was 42. He was born in Afghanistan but emigrated from Iran. And he was married and had a family as well. Disappeared December 2010. Soroush Mahmoudi was 50, from Iran. He lived with his Sri Lankan wife and stepson. He disappeared August 2015. Salim Esen was 44, and he was a Turkish citizen. He disappeared March 2017. There's Dean Lisowick, 47. He was homeless, a former sex worker. He disappeared April 2016. Andrew Kinsman, 49. He disappeared June 2017. He worked at that Black Eagle bar. Mm-hmm. And then Kirushna Kumar Kanagaratnam. He was Sri Lankan, 37, and he was actually seeking asylum. But I guess his visa, like, expired, so he was under an order of deportation. He has no family, like, in Canada, so his family over in, I guess, Sri Lanka stopped hearing from him in August of 2015. So that's when they're saying that he disappeared, even though they think he could have died anywhere between, like, August and October of 2015.
Right. But because they were in Sri Lanka, they couldn't really...
Exactly. Yeah. So I have a couple afters here. I think that's what we're going to call it.
I like it. The afters.
The afters. So, of course, once the story broke, the LGBTQ community they knew that there was a serial killer, but no one was really paying attention to it. Police didn't take the report seriously. The community believed that lives could have been saved had the police cared about these missing men.
Okay.
But of course, not only are they minorities, they're homosexual and they're living double lives. So it's like you fit into, like, the perfect group of what police don't really care about.
Right. Well, okay, this goes in the we don't care
exactly box. Or it's like, well, they're living double lives, like they could have just left or something like that.
Yeah.
The police only seemed to really take real action when Andrew Kinsman, who was white, disappeared, and he had no sex work past or, like, drug use, unlike Dean Lisowick. He was also white, so there was 2 white victims in this case, but Andrew Kinsman was like the clean cut, like little white guy, and everyone. But even like the community, it seemed like once he went missing, they put flyers up. They were doing like weekly like meetings and stuff to try and see where he was, as opposed to when these other men went missing. It was surprising, but it was just kind of like meh.
Right.
So it's kind of like the police and the community seemed like failed these men. Mm-hmm. Some believe that the families of these victims also seemed to lose like interest once they found out that their loved one was gay, which is really sad.
Yeah.
Yep. Or they were too scared to speak to authorities and give any more information because of their immigration status and general fear of police.
That sounds familiar.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You can't escape it. Even Canada, as perfect as it seems, has its flaws.
Yeah.
As a result, and as what some people would interpret as an acknowledgement of their fucking up, Toronto police the police chief announced an independent investigation into the forces handling the missing persons cases, because it just seems like they botched and fucked the whole missing persons thing. Like, they didn't communicate it, no one looked into it, so he's gonna go back and try and figure out what the fuck happened. They also announced the reopening of 25 cold cases dating from 1975 to 1997, all associated with the gay village. These include a series of brutal murders in the village between 1975 and 1978, when McArthur would have been about 23 or 26 years, between 23 and 26 years old.
So he may have done it before, but took a break.
Yep. Well, we don't even know if it's a break.
That's true. I mean, did they check all the houses yet? Because there's probably bodies everywhere.
Exactly. So I'm going to finish up with these murders, and then we'll go back to another thing I found. No problem.
This is too interesting for me not to be like saying shit.
Exactly. And like, so during the series of murders between 75 and 78, McArthur was actually working just a few blocks away. The victims in these cases were all gay men, were found in their homes, naked, tied to beds.
Oh, wow.
Like, they found old boy. Stabbed or beaten in a manner described as overkill.
Wow.
So, there's also, like, they've opened up the investigation to not only Toronto, but the rest of Canada where he may have frequented, as well as internationally, because he was known to take vacations out of Canada.
So, I'm loving how the Canadians are a lot more thorough with their investigations. I'm sorry here, but they are.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
And although, I mean, there were fuck-ups, like... So, one thing I will say, you know how we are about the cops. Like, we're not afraid to be like, y'all fucked this shit up. Y'all could have done more. And, like, when the community said about them only taking action when Andrew Kinsman disappeared, I wouldn't say that's true, because Project Houston, that first task force in 2012, that was done after Navaraj disappeared. Andrew Kinsman hadn't disappeared at that point. So, it seems like they were trying to do something.
Yeah, they probably hit a dead end at some point.
Exactly, because they really had no... I mean, if you don't have any leads, if you don't have any suspects, you can't really do anything.
And I believe it's probably hard to, at least... I mean, because our family are immigrants too.
Exactly.
Looking in immigrant communities is sometimes difficult because you have the language barrier. And
fear of police.
Fear of police. And then we're also very tight-knit that we don't really tell...
Exactly.
A lot. It's more so like that's within our community, our family will deal with it, as opposed to letting everybody else deal with it. Because also, like many immigrants, image is important. So we don't want the outside world, especially because most of these men are Middle Eastern, to think bad.
To know that exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then the whole sexuality thing is another play, because it's very frowned upon in many cultures. So,
yeah. So it seems like it was just like this. I feel like this guy knew who he was targeting, of course. Because he knew that these guys were living double lives. So I don't think I mentioned this before, but actually McArthur was into the BDSM world.
Well,
he frequented, like... I don't know.
When you said they was tied up and shit, I already knew.
True. So he was on like almost every single gay app you could think of. Okay. Every BDSM app you could think of. So a lot of these guys he met through there as well.
Okay.
So it's like, I think just dealing with I feel like the police also don't know how to handle cases when it comes to BDSM, because a lot of them are like, well, you agreed to do this, so why are you complaining now? Where it's like, there's a fine line, like within the community, like they say in a lot of these articles that I read, that everything has to do with trust. Like, you go in and you guys know your boundaries, you know what's okay, you know what's not, you know, there's like the whole safe word and everything. So as soon as that boundary is crossed, I mean, they have every right to be like, yo, I did not sign up for this.
This is what makes me curious about the whole BDSM world, as well as with his case being a serial killer. How do you learn when it's too much for another person? Because I like people who do have the like the breath play when they do the choking and stuff. At what point do you learn where it's too far? Because I'm wondering if maybe one day he was engaged in the play and that's when his first murder happened, and then he liked it. And then he liked it.
Well, that's like where the whole safe word comes in, and I know a lot of them also have to do with like when you tap out, like you gotta stop. Like whoever is the dominant in that case has to stop. Like that. Like, the whole BDSM is communication as well as trust.
Because, like, no kink shame here, but a lot of that shit seems extremely dangerous. I mean, even if you watch a flick or two or whatever, some of that stuff is, like, so far that I'm surprised people aren't dying more regularly from this, because
it's how much of doing it.
Right.
And it's like you gradually grow into it, I guess. And, like, a lot of this is, like, pushing your boundaries, but only in, like, as far as you're comfortable doing it. Yeah. So it's like, once he, like, say he smacks you a little too hard, all right, stop.
Like, ain't nobody smacking me. You smack me, you gonna fight it.
But this is part of it. All. This is part of it.
But
catch a titty to the face.
But yeah, that's the thing that's always, like, baffled me. It's like, when did you learn that was too far? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess you have to go a little too far once and then be like, all right, I didn't like that.
Oh, shit. You're like, wake up.
I guess part of it is like giving them CPR, maybe? I don't know. I'm sorry if that sounded ignorant. But
that's why I said no kink shaming, but like, I'm really, that interests me.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot, and I think I mentioned this before, there's a lot of people who are, you know, considered mentally healthy that engage in these acts. But then I wonder how many of those people are not.
Yeah.
And how many of them are just testing the waters by using this sexuality or this community.
This is true.
To, like, you know, push it further. It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I feel like it may not be that common because I feel like we would hear more about it.
But we got to remember in our society, sex is kind of shamed. So we won't hear as much. See, human sexuality is very interesting to me. So sit like this, because there's always some type of connection with these serial killers and some type of sexual trauma or like their interests in general. Yeah, like
sex seems to be the fuel of a lot of these things.
Yeah,
almost always.
It's very interesting.
Very interesting. Well, I have one case. Well, not one case. One story of a survivor.
Ooh.
So his name is Sean Cribben, and there's actually like interviews and articles you can find online. We highly recommend doing your research as well as apart from hearing like this podcast. I feel like doing your research on the side is even more interesting.
That's why if you look at the notes for the show,
we try to add links and all that where you can read it for yourself and like watch all the videos.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times there's tons of documentaries. Like
yes, and we can only do so much.
Right. A lot of these cases I feel like no one's heard of, and then I start Googling and I'm like, there's 10 documentaries.
Exactly.
So like, if you're really into it, please continue to search. Please. Let us know what you think. You know, that's why we always tell you, write us, because we want to know more. Even if we have to revisit a case, we don't mind, you know.
Shit, I got nothing to do outside of work. All right, so Sean Cribben is the survivor, and he met McAruthur via a gay dating app.
Okay.
And his profile picture... So this is like the creepy thing. This Bruce McArthur guy looks like Santa Claus. But with like a shorter beard sometimes.
Not Santa.
He is like a big, burly man with white hair. So this guy, Sean Cribben, said that like it made him look trustworthy. And, of course, this was, like, a BDSM app as well, dating app.
Okay. Well, so in the gay community, he's considered, like a bear?
Yes.
And he actually, like... for Santa lookalikes?
Noels. So, after, like, communicating a bit, Cribben agrees to meet up with McAruthur for a sexual encounter at McAruthur's apartment. McArthur was supposed to pick him up, like, in front of his apartment building. But then, like, McArthur tells this cribbing guy, like, hey, just walk, like, a couple blocks down and I'll pick you up there. And now, looking back at it, he thinks he was trying to get away from cameras in front of the guy's building.
Oh, yeah, so he could snatch him up.
Exactly. Okay, so while driving to McArthur's apartment, Cribben actually brought up the fact that there may be a serial killer in the community.
Okay.
And McArthur just, like, doesn't say anything. He doesn't even, like, react or blink twice or anything. So, like, Cribben's like, oh, well, maybe he's just, like, not into, like, serial killer stuff, so I'm gonna just change the subject. And that was, like...
It.
So, Cribben, they arrive at the apartment. He knowingly consumes GHB, a cocktail made out of GHB. So GHB in small doses causes a euphoric feeling as well as heightens the sexual experience.
I'm glad you explained that because I didn't know what the hell GHB was.
But in higher doses, it has the same effect as being roofied.
Oh.
And the difference is only like a drop or two.
Oh.
Yes. So the consensual encounter quickly turned into something terrifying when Cribben realizes that there was too much GHB in the cocktail and he starts basically going unconscious.
Damn.
So when he comes to, he finds this humongous man on top of him, basically raping his throat and cutting off his air supply, and he felt like he couldn't breathe.
Oh.
Exactly. So he was basically like suffocating him, about to kill him, when McArthur's roommate knocks on the door and comes in. And that's the only reason that this guy is probably alive.
Damn, he would have died by dick. Like,
look. So, knowing what we know, I think we can go ahead and assume that this guy drugged his victims, killed them while raping them, and then dismembered them. Because
that's the gradual... I mean, that's
probably... So, I guess we can get into our theories now, a little bit.
Okay.
So, that's probably, like you said, like, when do you know your boundaries? He probably, like, started off with this whole BDSM, and then accidentally, like...
killed someone and realized he liked it. Yeah. Because not everyone... I find it hard to believe that everyone that's involved in BDSM learned the proper way of doing it.
I don't think there is a proper way. It's just kind of like...
But you know what I mean? Till it hurts. The safe way or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The way, like... Okay, like, they supposedly make special ropes for those who are into being... tied up in intricate ways.
Oh, for real?
Or, yeah, like there's supposed to be a specific kind so it doesn't really harm your body. Or there's supposed to be a correct way of spanking someone when you use the paddles or like the what's those braided looking things.
Shit. Really?
It's supposed to be it's supposed to be a specific way you do it so that you're causing less harm to someone.
Oh.
So you still get the sensation, but you're not like murking them.
Damn.
So that's what I'm saying. I find it hard to believe that everyone learns it the right way.
Yeah. True. Or everyone takes the time to learn it the right way.
Right. And then you and I both know a lot of people are miseducated in general when it comes to sex. So if you're learning from just watching a flick, they know the correct way of doing it. Yeah. And you probably just go right into it, smacking the shit out of somebody and not realizing that they actually
getting smacked, and then you're just like, all right, no.
Right.
No, thank you.
They gradually get there. You have to, like, certain orifices have to be worked to get to a certain place and things like that. But people who don't know that, I know. But people who don't know that, they're just going off and doing shit, and then shit happens.
Exactly.
So, cause that sounds like that's what it sounds like to me too. Like he fucked up one time and he was like, "What can I do with this body? Planters. Let's put planter in the body." Yeah. And then like the next time, maybe he tried again. He didn't get off, and he was like, "Well, maybe I do need to kill motherfuckers to get off."
Possibly.
Who knows?
Exactly. I feel like this is just so much more interesting because we will be alive while the investigation goes on, and this won't go to trial for years.
So they do have him in custody.
Oh yeah, he's in jail and everything like that. He's been charged with 8 first-degree murders and everything like that. But since the justice system moves so slow, but maybe Canada's a bit quicker. The money I would pay to be in that jury. Oh my God. I have so many questions. I want to know so much.
You just want to go interview him?
Yes, I do.
Maybe we can start writing him letters once he gets in jail and see if we can get him to talk to us.
Shit.
We're not his type, so you don't do anything to worry about.
This is true. True shit. We're not his type. So it's just like there's so much that's gonna come out. Like I need to know everything. Like part of me is excited and a part of me is like kind of not excited because like Jeffrey Dahmer, we know everything because he like said everything. That co-ed killer, Ed Kemper, we know everything because he like
said
talked
everything.
about it.
Yeah.
It's like, what if this guy either murks himself before or like gets murked or doesn't talk? It's like we won't know so much.
That's true. Like,
one of the questions I have is, like, did he might have killed him in his house, but where did he dismember them? He had a roommate. Like,
maybe I don't know. I was like thinking maybe you saw like, that one house and she said it was far away from the house and they knew he was doing yard work. Maybe he drugged them out there and just did it because nobody was really watching him.
True shit.
And he just like brought him out like
I wonder
a tarp
how big that house was.
and pulled like the chainsaw. You're thinking that he's
well, he had access to like wood chippers, chemicals that could dissolve bodies. So it's like this. They're saying 8, but I feel like there's hundreds. Like
it has to be because of the time span.
And he was 66 years old when they arrested him.
Ain't no way your old ass
you
just
did not
started doing
start
this shit.
at 56 or something like that. Nope, you did not. Exactly.
Damn, he's 66 years old.
Exactly. It's just like there's so much. I found like some background information on him because like one of my theories is, so after reading like about him, he was born into a very devout family. Very churchy.
Here we go.
Exactly. He was actually very active in his church community up until the end, I guess. Mm-hmm. So one of my things... So his dad was like a man's man or whatever. And he always tried to like appease his dad, even though his dad didn't really seem to fuck with him. And he thinks, or people around him think that it's because he knew that he was gay. His dad knew that he was gay. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of like...
shunning him. Yeah.
So... I feel like him taking out, like, it was like him taking out his anger on the gay community was like his own self-hate.
That happens a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, not to this extent, but that happens a lot. You'll hear about how a lot of down low men will, verbally assault a gay person and then turn around and be like, well, I'm trying to get with you and stuff like that. I've heard that happen a lot. Yeah,
this is true. Or like I feel like a lot of people who bash the whole community as a whole and just constantly it's just like you're like
every other sentence is about how something's gay.
Exactly.
I hate that.
Or like you're just out here like going out of your way to disrespect this community. I feel it's because deep down like
either you're gay or you're questioning your own sexuality.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, there was like one instance where like this guy who was like an acquaintance and I guess they were interested in each other or something like that. So this guy, there was like no name for him, but he kind of confronted McArthur because of the stories he heard about him. So like around the community, he was known as like he could go off at any moment. Like he was nice, but he also had like a temper on him. So he kind of confronted him and was like, yo, I've heard these stories about you or whatever. And McArthur goes off on him. And he starts screaming, like, I guess in the middle of, like, whatever restaurant they were in. He starts screaming, and he says, this is a quote. This is not what I'm saying. He says, fucking faggots telling stories about me. You're just like the rest of them. You think I'm crazy.
Unquote.
End quote. So it's like, I feel like that's, like, adds to the whole, maybe he hates himself. And wanted to take it out on, like, other gay men.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
But then again, there's just so much that we don't know. God damn it.
Sheesh.
That was the case of Bruce McArthur, the Toronto serial killer.
Yep.
There's no snappy name for him yet.
What are we going to call him? The Killer Santa? Bad Santa.
Oh, my God.
I guess we're gonna have to like do an update episode somewhere down the line once we get more information.
I'm sure there's like, because just this month there's been like 3 different updates, so I'm sure it will continue. And there's no like trial date yet or anything like that. I'm about to become a Canadian citizen, so that I can go ahead and be part of that jury.
Well, if we have any Canadian listeners, please let us know what's going on.
Please fly me out, man. I'm trying to be in Toronto.
Can you board us for a little bit?
Yeah,
just so we can
get. Can you
the
adopt us? Is that okay? Do they have the same K9 visa thing?
So we can get married. We'll be a 90-day fiance.
Canadian. Hey. Just to be part of the trial, though.
And then we're going to leave after that. So.
No, we'll leave in 2020 when they elect a new U.S. president. Because I'm not staying here no more.
If they elect a new one.
Oh my God, please don't.
If they give him a second term.
This is about to be the Handmaid's Tale for real.
I'm like, help me, please. Help me, please. Can't deal with this.
Swim my ass to Canada. I don't know why I said that.
We'll swim to Canada?
Just walk to Canada.
Across the border. All right, guys. Well, that was it. We will see you next week.
Yes, we will. As always, follow us on Twitter, ASMurderClub. Instagram, AntiSocialMurderClub. Email us if you want to. Rate this. Comment. Like us on SoundCloud. Do all of it. Yeah. Be supportive, goddammit.
And I'm starting us a YouTube channel so you can we'll upload episodes there for those who prefer to listen on YouTube. We don't have any plans for videos anytime soon, but they will come somewhere.
Maybe we'll do a live murder one day. Who knows?
Yeah.
That'll be our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, we'll invite an actual serial killer over to kill someone. Put it on film.
That would actually be really cool.
Then we'll get banned from YouTube like that dude. Well, he wasn't fully banned. The kid who showed a dead body when he went to that forest.
Logan, whatever, motherfucker.
Yeah, Logan Paul.
Yeah, that son of a...
Yep. But anyway.
We're just going to interview the serial killer, though. We're not going to show no dead bodies. Unless he wants to.
We can do that.
Yo, that would be like a dream come true for me.
Yes.
Like, I want to sit down and talk to a serial killer.
But not like behind the glass on the couch.
No, I want to like shake his hand. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
What is wrong with you? All right, y'all. We are out. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Fuck this shit. I'm out.